Please, don't beat me, I'm already hurt.
The town of Red Hollow had seen many things: dust storms that swallowed barns whole, cattle stampedes that trampled fences into splinters, and men mean enough to make even the wind change direction. But it had never seen the kind of silence that fell that afternoon. The sky burned orange, like it had been bruised by the setting sun. The wind carried the smell of horses and whiskey. And in the middle of the street, near the old feed store, a man raised his hand. She flinched before he even touched her. She couldn't have been older than 15. Thin, dirt on her cheek, a torn dress hanging loosely from shoulders that looked too tired for a body that young. One shoe missing. Lips split. "Police," she whispered, backing away, trembling. The crowd watched. No one stepped forward. The man grabbed her arm, shaking her hard enough to rattle bones. "You think you can steal from me?" he barked. She shook her head desperately. "Please, don't beat me," she cried, voice cracking. "I'm already hurt." Her words didn't sound like a defense. They sounded like the last thing someone says before giving up. The man lifted his belt, and that's when the boots stopped walking. Heavy, measured, slow. Dust shifted behind him. Everyone in Red Hollow knew that walk. The long coat, the hat tilted just low enough to hide half his face. The man who never talked unless he had to. The man who hadn't smiled in years. Ethan Crow. They called him the silent cowboy. He didn't carry a badge. He didn't ask for respect. But no one ignored him either. He stepped between the belt and the girl. He didn't say a word. The man sneered. "This ain't your business, Crow." Ethan's eyes moved to the girl. Her arms were covered in faded bruises. Not 1 day old, many days old. He saw something most men in town ignored. This wasn't punishment. This was habit. His jaw tightened. "Let her go," he said quietly. That was all. 3 words. The man laughed, but his fingers loosened. Ethan didn't raise his voice. He didn't reach for his gun. He simply stood there, still, unmovable, and somehow that was worse. The man spat on the ground and shoved her away. "She's nothing but trouble." The girl stumbled and hit the dirt. No one helped, except the silent cowboy. He crouched slowly and offered his hand. She hesitated. Maybe she had learned that hands meant pain. He didn't move closer. He just waited. After a long second, she placed her shaking fingers into his. He helped her up carefully, like she was something breakable. No one had ever seen Ethan Crow touch anything gently. Until now. He didn't take her to the sheriff. He didn't take her back to that man. He walked her to the edge of town. To his ranch. No one dared question it. The ranch was quiet. Wide open land. Wind that whispered instead of roared. A house built more for function than comfort. He lit a lantern. She stood near the doorway, like she expected to be told to leave. "Long silence?" he asked. "Lully," she finally whispered. He nodded once. He brought water. Bread. A blanket. She ate like someone who wasn't sure there would be food tomorrow. He pretended not to notice how her hands shook. That night, he heard it. The sound he hadn't heard in years. Crying behind a closed door. Not loud sobbing. The kind you try to hide. The kind that breaks you slowly from the inside. He sat at the table in the dark, staring at the flame of the lantern. He hadn't saved her. Not yet. He just stopped one beating. He knew bruises like hers. Not from fists, from memory. He stood outside the spare room. Raised his hand to knock. Lowered it. Instead, he spoke through the door. "No one's gonna hurt you here." Silence. Then the softest, smallest voicey. "They all say that." His eyes closed. He understood. "I don't say things I don't mean." Long pause. The crying stopped. But sleep didn't come to either of them that night. Morning came slow. Lily woke before the sun. She tried to leave. She thought kindness had a limit. She believed she had overstayed it. But when she stepped outside, a folded piece of paper sat on the porch table. 3 words written in rough ink. "You can stay." She stared at it for a long time. Then she cried again, but differently this time. Days passed. She didn't speak much. He didn't either. But something shifted. She fed the chickens. He fixed the fence. She watched how he treated animals with steady patience. He noticed she jumped at loud noises. One afternoon, he saw her tracing scars on her arm. Old ones. Not from the man in town. From before him. That's when he understood. She wasn't running from a single moment. She was running from a lifetime. And Ethan Crow, he knew about lifetimes you can't outrun. Years ago, before the town called him silent, he had a daughter. Same age, same soft brown eyes. Lost in a winter fever while he was miles away driving cattle. He came home too late. Since then, he buried words with her. He built walls no one could climb. Until Lily. Until the way she looked at him, not with fear, but confusion. Like she couldn't understand why he wasn't angry. And that scared him more than anything. Because for the first time in years, he cared what happened tomorrow. And Red Hollow wasn't the kind of town that let fragile things survive. Not without a fight. Trouble doesn't knock in towns like Red Hollow. It rides in. 3 days later, the same man returned. But he wasn't alone. 2 others with him. Lily saw the dust cloud first. She froze. Her breathing changed. Ethan stepped out onto the porch slowly. The man shouted, "She belongs to me." Belongs. The word hit the air like poison. Ethan's voice was low, calm. "No one belongs to you." The man laughed. "She's mine?" Bought and paid. Lily's hands gripped her dress so tight her knuckles turned white. Ethan felt something shift inside him. Not rage. Something colder. "You take one more step," Ethan said quietly, "and you don't ride home." The street fell silent. The men looked at each other. They had heard stories about the silent cowboy who only fired when necessary, which meant, when he did, it ended. The man cursed but hesitated. And in that hesitation, the town began watching. Some whispered. Some remembered that day in the street. And something rare happened. The sheriff stepped forward. For once. "She stays," the sheriff muttered. It wasn't bravery. It was finally choosing the right side. The men rode away. But the storm wasn't over. That night, Lily spoke more than she had in weeks. She told him everything. Sold by an uncle who didn't want her. Moved from house to house. Hands that hurt, voices that blamed her for it. She learned to apologize for breathing too loudly. She learned to expect pain after kindness. And I thought, when he raised that belt, she whispered, "I thought maybe I deserved it." Ethan stood up so fast the chair scraped hard against the floor. "You listen to me," he said. His voice wasn't loud. But it wasn't silent anymore either. "You were a child." Tears filled her eyes. "No one gets to hurt you and call it love." He stepped closer but kept space between them. "You're not broken," he continued. "You survived." She had never heard that word applied to her. Survived, not victim, not burden, not trouble. Survivor. Something inside her shifted that night, and something inside him healed a little too. Weeks passed. Lily laughed one morning. Actually laughed. At a stubborn goat. Ethan froze like he'd heard music for the first time. He found himself fixing the porch, not because it was broken, but because she liked sitting there. He found himself speaking more. Short sentences, then longer ones. One evening, she sat beside him and asked softly, "Why did you help me?" He looked at the horizon. Because no one helped her. He didn't have to say who. She understood. They weren't replacing the past. They were rewriting the future. And when spring came, so did something else. Adoption papers. The sheriff signed them. The town watched. The silent cowboy put his name on the line with a hand that no longer shook from memory. Lily Crow. She held the paper like it might disappear. "You don't have to stay if you don't want to," he told her. She smiled. "I'm not staying because I have to." She stepped forward and hugged him. He stiffened. Then slowly, he wrapped his arms around her. Careful. Protective, certain. The man who never spoke unless necessary found his voice. The girl who begged not to be beaten found her home. Red Hollow never forgot the day the silent cowboy stepped between cruelty and fear. But they remembered something else more clearly. The day a broken cry turned into a promise, and the promise became a family.